Curious George, the curious little monkey. Here he comes, as happy as can be. Curious George, the curious little monkey. Why is he curious? Well, let's go and see.
Curious George at the farm. Finish your milk, George, and then we can drive out to Jackson's farm, said the man with the yellow hat. After lunch, they got into the car and drove off. In a little while, they were on a winding country road. After a few miles, they saw a sign, Jackson's Farm. There were lots of cows in the field. A young farm boy was taking them to the big red barn. The car stopped in front of a white farmhouse. Mr. Jackson was there to greet him. His daughter, Sally, was carrying a tiny white kitten. "Welcome," said Mr. Jackson. "Come on in and have a cup of coffee." "While we're inside, George," said the man with the yellow hat, "take a look around, but don't get into trouble." George headed for the big red barn. He pushed the barn door open. The cows had gone inside and were already in their stalls. It was feeding time. What were they going to eat? George was curious. He jumped to the top of the stall and looked down. The feed box was filled with corn and oats. The cow took a big mouthful. Then it turned to look at George. George was scared. He jumped down and knocked over a pail full of milk. There he was in the middle of a big puddle. "What's going on?" a voice shouted. "So it was you," said the farm boy. "You little rascal. I have to tell Mr. Jackson about this." George was scared. He hid behind the door. Suddenly, George saw the little white kitten run through the open barn door. "Here, kitty, kitty," Sally was calling. The kitty was licking the spilled milk. Then it jumped to the top of the feed box and looked down into it. Just as the kitten stretched out its paw, the cow raised its head. Whoosh! The kitten was thrown into the air and landed way up on a narrow wooden beam. It did not know how to get down again. George was watching. He knew what to do. He climbed up the rope, reached out as far as he could, and saved the kitten. Just then, the farm boy, Sally, Mr. Jackson, and the man with the yellow hat came running in. "That's the fellow who spilled the milk," the boy shouted. "But he saved my kitten," said Sally. George climbed down and handed the kitten over to Sally. "Never mind about the spilled milk now," said Mr. Jackson. "Thanks to you, George, Sally has got her kitten back." "And now, George," said the man with the yellow hat, "it's time to go home." And off they went in their little blue car.